Hey guys! So today we're going to start talking about West Africa. We're going to break it up into 2 lessons because it's just too much area and too much to cover to do it all in one day or in one lesson. So we're going to have West Africa Part 1 and then West Africa Part 2. You'll have a Google Classroom assignment to follow this presentation called West Africa Part 1 assignment that goes with the West Africa Part 1 slideshow or this video. The West African country of Nigeria takes its name from the Niger River, which flows through western and central Nigeria. One of the largest nations in Africa, Nigeria is more than twice the size of California. Nigeria has a long coastline on the Gulf of Guinea, an arm of the Atlantic Ocean. Along Nigeria's coast, the land is covered with mangrove swamps. A mangrove is a tropical tree with roots that extend both above and beneath the water. As you travel inland, the land becomes vast tropical rainforests and small villages appear in only a few clearings. The forests gradually thin into savannas in central Nigeria. Savannas are tropical grasslands with only a few trees. Highlands and plateaus also make up this area. Most of the country has a tropical savanna climate with a high average temperatures and seasonal rains. The grasslands of the far north have a dry steppe climate. In the winter months, a dusty wind called the harmattan blows from the south of the Sahara. Nigeria is one of the world's major oil-producing countries. More than 90% of the country's income comes from oil exports. The government has used money from oil to build highways, schools, skyscrapers, and factories. These factories make food products, textiles, chemicals, machinery, and vehicles. More than 1/3 of Nigeria's people lack jobs and live in poverty. Nigeria began to experience economic troubles during the 1980s. As a result of falling world oil prices, Nigeria's income dropped. At the same time, many people left their farms in search of better paying jobs in the cities. In addition, a few years of low rainfall meant smaller harvests. Despite oil resources, Nigeria's people mainly work as farmers. Most have subsistence farms. Some work on larger farms that produce such cash crops as rubber, peanuts, palm oil, and cacao. The cacao is a tropical tree whose seeds are used to make chocolate and cocoa. Nigeria is a leading producer of the cacao beans. About 113.8 million people live in Nigeria. That's more than any other country in Africa. Most of the people live along the coast and around the city of Kano in the north. One of the strongest bonds that Africans have is a sense of belonging to a group or a family. Nigeria has more than 300 ethnic groups. The 4 largest are the Hausas, the Fulani, Yoruba, and the Igbo. Nigerians speak many different African languages and they use English in business and governments. About 60% of Nigerians live in rural villages. The typical family lives in a compound. A compound is a group of houses surrounded by walls. Usually the village has a weekly market run by women. The women sell locally grown products such as meat, palm oil, cloth, yams, and nuts. These markets also provide a chance for friends to meet. Long-standing rural ways are changing now. Many young men now move to the cities to find work. The women stay in the villages to raise children and to farm the land. The men, when they are able, return home to see the families and to share the money they have made. Nigeria's largest city is the port of Lagos. It's a former capital. Major banks, department stores, and restaurants serve the 11 million people who live in Lagos and its surrounding areas. Abuja is the present capital city in Nigeria. It's a planned city that was begun during the 1980s. The earliest known inhabitants of this area were the Nok people. They lived between the Niger and the Benue rivers. The Nok were known as skilled metal workers and traders. Over the centuries, powerful city-states and kingdoms became centers of trade and the arts. People in the north came in contact with Muslim cultures and adopted the religion of Islam. People in the south developed cultures based on traditional African religions. During the 1400s, Europeans arrived in Africa. They were looking for gold and Africans to take overseas as enslaved laborers. In 1884, European leaders divided most of Africa into colonies. The borders of these colonies, however, often sliced through ethnic lands. As a result, many ethnic groups found their members living in 2 or more separate territories. By the early 1900s, the British had taken control of Nigeria. In 1960, Nigeria finally became an independent nation. Ethnic, religious, and political disputes soon tore it apart, however. One ethnic group, the Igbo, tried to set up their own country. A civil war resulted. In this bloody war, starvation and conflict led to 2 million deaths. The Igbo were defeated. Their region remained part of Nigeria. Nigeria has faced the challenge of building a stable government. Military leaders have often ruled the country. In 1999, Nigerians were able to vote for a president in a free election. Nigeria's democratic government is working to build greater national unity. 5 countries are located in an area known as the Sahel: Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. The word Sahel comes from an Arabic word that means border. The Sahel in West Africa forms the border between the Sahara to the north and the fertile lands to the south. The Sahel receives little rainfall, so only short grasses and small trees can support grazing animals. Most people have traditionally herded livestock. Their flocks unfortunately have overgrazed the land in some places. When animals overgraze land, they strip areas so bare that plants cannot grow back. Then bare soil is blown away by the wind. In the Sahel, dry and wet periods usually follow each other. When the seasonal rains do not fall, drought takes hold. The latest drought occurred in the 1980s. Rivers dried up, crops failed, and millions of animals died. Thousands of people died of hunger, and millions fled to more productive areas in the south. Over the years, both overgrazing and drought have ruined once productive areas in the Sahel. Many grassland areas have become desert, a process called desertification. Scientists believe that the increasing human use of land in the Sahel will only increase damage to the land, and more of the Sahel will become desert. From the AD 500s to 1500s, 3 great African empires arose in the Sahel. These empires controlled trade in the gold, salt, and other goods between West Africa and the Arab lands of North Africa and Southwest Asia. In the early 1300s, Mali's most famous ruler, Mansa Musa, made a journey in grand style to Mecca. This is the holy city of Islam located in the Arabian Peninsula. A faithful Muslim, Mansa Musa made his capital Timbuktu, a leading center of Islamic learning. People came from all over the Muslim world to study there. Invaders from the north defeated Songhai, the last of the great empires, in the late 1500s. During the 1800s, the Sahel region came under French rule. The French created 5 colonies in the area. In the 1960s, these 5 colonies became the independent nations of Mauritania, Mali, Upper Volta, now Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. The Sahel countries are large in size but have small populations. Most people live in the southern areas of the Sahel. Rivers flow here and the land can be farmed or grazed. Even these areas do not have enough water or fertile land to support large numbers of people. Today, most people in the Sahel live in small towns. They are subsistence farmers who grow grains such as millet and sorghum. For years, many people were nomads. Groups such as the Tuareg and Fulani, for example, would cross the desert with herds of camels, cattle, goats, and sheep. The recent droughts forced many of them to give up their traditional way of life and move to towns. Here they often live in crowded camps of tents. The people of the Sahel practice a mix of African, Arab, and European traditions. Most are Muslim and follow the Islamic religion. They speak Arabic as well as a variety of African languages, and in many of the large cities, French is also spoken. So now go do your West Africa Part 1 assignment on Google Classroom and then submit it to me, and I'll see y'all later.